That morning, Ashford National Cemetery lay shrouded in a pale mist, as if the earth itself were a mourning veil for the fallen soldier whose flag-draped casket rested beneath the old oak canopy. The stars and stripes fluttered at half-staff in the gentle March breeze, each fold of cloth carrying the weight of countless sacrifices. The ground was so still that every footstep, from the crisp salute of a guard to the measured march of a ceremonial squad, seemed to cut through the silence like a solemn hymn. Rows of black-covered chairs stood in perfect formation, each one occupied by family members who sat as statues, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the coffin that held their loved one. Children in miniature uniforms clutched small flags. Adults steadied trembling hands against the metal clasp of medals pinned to their chests. No coughs, no murmurs, only the collective breath of a grief held in respectful restraint. Into this hush came a white patrol SUV, its engine nearly inaudible against the backdrop of pines and gravel. The rear door swung open and polished leather boots touched the damp earth. A hush fell deeper still as onlookers recognized the uniform of a major general, her four silver stars glinting like distant beacons of duty. She carried with her a small urn wrapped in black cloth, the final token of a comrade she once led through battlefields far from home. But before she could approach, a patrol officer stepped forward, his hand on his holstered weapon. In a voice rough with prejudice, he barked, "Black women bow their heads and cream. Why are you standing?" Before anyone could answer, he slammed his palm on the SUV's hood, rattling the metal as if to assert that authority flowed from fear, not honor. Yet he did not know her name nor the weight of the uniform she wore, forged by years of service and sacrifice. In that moment, bullets of bias met the unyielding shield of integrity, and the law would soon declare that dignity, not a badge, must endure. That morning stillness deepened as children in crisp miniature uniforms sat beside their elders, tiny caps pulled low, their solemn faces reflecting silence beyond their years. Adults too bowed their heads as they smoothed medals on their jackets, silver and bronze ribbons glinting in the muted light, each decoration a testament to sacrifice, service, and enduring loyalty. All eyes remained fixed on the flag-draped casket, its folds of red, white, and blue seeming to hold the weight of every story untold. Not a whisper stirred. Even the slightest cough felt an intrusion upon this hallowed moment. With little warning, a black SUV eased through the side gate, its engine a distant hum swallowed by the hush of pine and stone. The vehicle's rear door opened, and polished leather shoes met the soft gravel with quiet authority. Instantly, both sentinels standing guard snapped to attention, rifles shouldered as if the earth itself demanded respect for the figure now revealed. She emerged alone, no aides, no flashing lights, only the resolute bearing of a four-star general stepping into a sanctuary of grief. The rank on her left shoulder caught the pale light, each silver star, a silent chronicle of foreign deserts, distant skirmishes, and lives saved under fire. In her arms, she cradled a small, black-draped urn, the final testament to a soldier she had led through the chaos of combat and helped bring home in peace. Her gaze swept the rows of mourners, and for a heartbeat, every heart seemed to beat in unison with hers. Then, as if on cue, the entire assembly rose. Folding chairs tilted back. Canes tapped gravel. Even the statuesque uniform of the honor guard stirred in recognition. No words passed between them, none were needed. In her lone silhouette against the misted trees, they saw the unspoken truth that true leadership walks not in numbers, but in the courage to stand alone to honor every promise made to those who never returned. That single act of defiance split the hush like a thunderclap. While every other mourner rose in muted unity, Jordan Pierce planted himself squarely before the black SUV palm, pounding the polished hood with a crack that echoed among the marble headstones. Soldiers froze mid-step. A young flag bearer's grip loosened, and the tall, slender pole clattered to the grass. In the front row, a child in a crisp uniform cupped his ear and whispered, "Mom, why is that man talking to her?" The boy's mother bowed her head, pressing a trembling hand against her throat to still its catch. Morgan Blake remained unmoved, her gaze level and unwavering. Pierce's hand fell back to his side, but his contempt lingered in the air, heavy as gunmetal. "I thought you were with the choir," he snarled, eyes flicking from her silver stars to the polished brass buttons of her tunic, as though her rank were no more real than costume jewelry. The insult hung between them like a challenge. Slowly, with the precision of a surgeon's steady hand, Morgan withdrew her slim leather wallet and extended her military ID without a word. The card glinted in the pale sunlight as she held it out at arm's length. Pierce only sneered. He leaned forward, nostrils flaring, and spat. "They fake these things real well now, don't they?" His voice rose just enough for every ear to catch it. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled crowd, and even the breeze seemed to hold its breath. Rather than argue, Morgan lowered her arm and tucked the card away with silent dignity. She drew herself up and stepped toward the flag-draped casket, each footfall reverberating in the stillness. Pierce countered with another lift of his arm, palm forward in a sterner blockade. "You can't pass. You're not on the approved list," he barked. Nearby, a veteran, once a captain in the same unit, leaned toward his neighbor and murmured, voice low enough to avoid censure, but loud enough for those closest to hear. "Are we burying a soldier today? Or burying honor itself?" No one moved to restrain Pierce. No one moved to support Morgan yet. In that taut moment, as the mist curled through the oaks and the afternoon sun struck each silver star, the entire cemetery became a crucible for justice. Every witness felt the weight of a single question hanging above the bowed heads and wreaths. When honor itself is challenged, will those sworn to defend it, civilian and soldier alike, choose silence? Or will they find their voices at loss, let no one step between them? The hush deepened heavy as the morning mist that curled around the tombstones. Morgan's polished black shoes remained planted just a pace from Pierce's stiff stance, her gaze colder than contempt itself, a silent refusal that needed no words. His breathing hissed through clenched teeth as he reminded her she lacked authorization to enter this restricted zone, his voice thick with conviction that her silver stars counted for nothing. He spoke of protecting honor, yet each ribbon and medal on her chest seemed to him as hollow as cheap decoration. Overhead, the flag atop the casket fluttered once a final breath in still air, then fell silent again. Without warning, Pierce advanced, snatching Morgan's ID from its hiding place. He flipped it high into the sunlight, like a counterfeit bill, studying the gleam of her name and rank before spitting disdainfully onto the grass. The sound echoed across the rows of mourners, bouncing off marble crosses and solemn oaks. Every breath in the cemetery caught mid-throat, as if the act itself had struck a blow to some unspoken covenant. The urn in Morgan's hands trembled only slightly. Her posture never wavered. At her flank, a young white soldier, a crisp uniform, barely more than a boy, leaned forward, his lips parting as if to rise in protest. But a firm hand gripped his shoulder, a veteran officer whispering 4 words. Not the time yet, and so he froze, caught by duty to stand down, even as his conscience urged him to act. Around them, the audience remained motionless, caught in the crucible of that moment, honor pinned between one woman's silent defiance and a single man's brute assertion of power. Morgan's gaze never wavered. The hush around them deepened as Pierce clutched her ID, the metal edges gleaming in his sweaty fist. "They make good fakes these days," he spat, voice low and vicious. "Places like Baltimore, Chicago, plenty of folks out there buying pretend stars." He let the card drop, then snatched it back up, flicking his thumb across the printed name as if testing its authenticity. Unseen by most mourners, a group of young journalists crouched in the shadows of the nearby bushes, their cameras already live-streaming the confrontation. Within moments, the hashtag #FuneralGunGate trended on military forums, each fresh post a sharpened blade slicing through the ceremony's fragile decorum. Yet Morgan remained motionless, her silent defiance crackling in the thick air more powerfully than any words could. She stepped forward, each measured pace a testament to her years of service, until she stood face to face with Pierce. His breath mingled with hers, sharp with the scent of tobacco and sweat. "You're not doubting the card," she said softly, her voice steady. "You're doubting that someone like me has the right to carry it." For the first time, Pierce's jaw faltered. The contempt in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. Protocol forbade him from stepping back during a security inspection, but that rigid code cost him his poise. His shoulders sagged and the ID card trembled in his palm. In that instant, Morgan reached out not with anger, but with the calm precision of a commander. Her fingers closed over the top edge of the card, and she yanked it free in one swift, fluid motion. The click of metal against her fingernail rang louder than any gavel resonating through the rows of onlookers. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as she tucked her ID back into her pocket, the urn in her other hand never once tilting. Pierce stood frozen, the card long gone, forced to confront that his authority had failed to unseat her dignity. Around them, the morning mist seemed to lift, revealing a truth far clearer than any badge of honor needs no permission to stand its ground. As the crowd reeled from the reclaiming of her ID, dozens of phones rose like lances in unison. Versa, general light flashed across screens around the globe. In the front row, a mother gently lifted herself from her chair and stepped into the aisle. Without a word, she met Morgan's eyes and offered a slow, resolute nod. In that silent gesture lay every unspoken apology and vindication honor had quietly shifted its weight. Every witness felt it, the fragile balance between duty and prejudice had finally been tipped. Morgan turned and with deliberate calm set the small urn beside the flag-draped casket. Each breath she drew a line in the sand between dignity and dominance. But before the morning mist could settle, Pierce's Glock cleared its holster with a metallic scrape that shattered the fragile hush. The gun's barrel glinted under the oak canopy like a blade. A collective intake of breath swept through the mourners as they looked on, some frozen in shock, others gripping chairs for support. "One more move and I'll take it as a threat," Pierce hissed, arm-trembling finger hovering near the trigger. The funeral flag, heavy at half-staff, quivered in the unnaturally still air. Unfazed, Morgan lifted her chin, shoulders squared, gaze unwavering as she met the barrel's cold steel. "If I die here," she said in a voice so clear it seemed to pierce the tension, "the whole country will know why." Those words landed like a verdict. No plea, no accusation, simply the unvarnished truth. In the aftermath, time slowed to a collective heartbeat. Phones recorded every second, but no device could capture the weight of that silence. The world beyond the cemetery gates held its breath, waiting to see whether fear or justice would prevail. And in that frozen moment, before any order was given or hand was raised, everyone understood that true power lies not in the threat of force, but in the courage to stand when all eyes and weapons are trained on you. A silver-haired three-star general, standing at the edge of the ceremony, bowed his head ever so slightly and whispered, "Don't." Not anyone in particular, as a single tear traced the line of his cheek. In that hushed admission lay decades of unspoken remorse, shame for every moment he and others had chosen silence over intervention. Above the mourners, a lone drone hovered into view. Its lens swept across the scene and locked onto Pierce's sweat-beaded brow, capturing every beat of fear and contempt for evidence no anguished apology could ever erase. On the far flank, a young soldier knelt briefly beside a canvas-wrapped spare flag, its fabric still pressed into the protective sleeve. That simple act of preparation spoke volumes. They had all known deep down that order could fracture without warning. In the center aisle, Morgan Blake barely shifted her weight, lifting the toe of her polished shoe by mere millimeters. That imperceptible gesture sent a final unspoken message: she would neither advance nor retreat in the face of hatred. Pierce's final threat, hushed, venomous, laced with the promise of violence, fell into a void. His arm froze mid-gesture, the Glock's cold steel rendered powerless by the absolute stillness that enveloped every witness. Two military police stepped forward without a sound, moving with practiced precision to secure his weapon and snap cold handcuffs around his wrists. Not a single civilian or soldier stirred. The only movement was the gentle breeze lifting the corner of the fallen soldier's photograph, now shattered on the grass at Morgan's feet. That torn image, its frame cracked and glass splintered, lay as an emblem of dignity violated and honor reclaimed. As the military police led Pierce away, the air seemed to settle, the mist lifting to reveal rows of bowed heads and clenched hands. In that moment, the ceremony resumed its solemn rhythm, the single, steady beat of a drum marking a life mourned and a principle defended. But those present would carry home a different kind of memory, not of a disrupted funeral, but of a nation's honor tested and ultimately upheld by the unwavering courage of one woman who refused to bow. As the deacon, weathered hands gripping a silver-headed cane, raised his voice just above a whisper, the single tap on the marble floor cut through the hush. Today morality turns a page. His words hung in the air not as a sermon, but as a reckoning. Heads bowed across the ceremonial ground, not in deference to rank, but in acknowledgement of a truth that had pierced their solemn vigil. In that brief moment, no one spoke of mistake or investigation. The day's spectacle had already delivered a justice far more profound than any cold report. A new photograph frame was carried forward, its glass pristine and its brass nameplate blank for only an instant. Every soldier and mourner watched as it was positioned beside the shattered portrait, a silent offering to dignity restored. The honor guard shifted into formation, once more rifles, lowered faces set in lines of quiet resolve. Taps sounded over the casket, softer this time, as if the bugler too felt the weight of what had come before. The flag-draped casket was lifted gently, carried past rows of wreaths and bowed heads, the urn placed tenderly at its side. And though the ceremony drew to its formal close, the air crackled with something new, a vow unspoken but unanimous to remember. No cheers marked the end, only the steady beat of boots on stone and the soft hum of a breeze that seemed to carry every witness's promise home. In the waning light, mourners drifted away beneath the ancient oaks, their shadows long and intertwined. A mother gathered her child, still clutching the miniature flag. A young soldier tucked the spare flag sleeve into his pack, unspoken pact, to stand ready if honor ever wavered again. Even as the cemetery gate swung shut, the echo of that day lingered, not a memory of violence, but of a woman's refusal to bend, and a country's choice to uphold what is sacred. And so the ritual ended, yet faith in the rights that bind a nation had cracked deeper than any gunshot. Those who remained behind, caretakers, veterans, witnesses, cast one last glance at the polished stones. In their silence lay a single steadfast promise to guard honor, not only in ceremony, but in every waking moment, so that no dark uniform ever again becomes a mask for fear. A year has passed since that mist-shrouded morning at Ashford, yet its echo still resonates across every corner of the military community. The urn, now nestled in a polished niche beside the casket it once guarded, bears a simple brass plaque, in honor of all who serve with dignity. Visitors pause longer here, soldiers in dress blues, grieving families, and quiet tourists, each drawn by the story of a general who refused to bow. Major policy reforms have followed her stand. Ceremonial zones nationwide now feature clearer authorization lists, mandatory bias training, and visible honor lines marked in brass on the ground. Commanders speak openly of the Blake Standard, invoking her name when emphasizing respect over routine. In mess halls and wardrooms, new flags hang backup standards once hidden, now display proudly, a reminder that vigilance must never sleep. Jordan Pierce's trial, held under the glare of national scrutiny, concluded with historic convictions and a federal mandate reshaping police-military cooperation. Yet beyond courtroom triumphs, the true measure of change lies in quieter moments. A young lieutenant pauses before presenting her credentials. A drill sergeant steadies his posture when a comrade of color steps forward. An aging veteran, once silent, recounts the day he first dared speak up. Across social media channels, Blake's Standard sparks debates on leadership and justice, but not as flash in the pan. It has become a year-round conversation in seminar rooms, book clubs, and coffee shops. Memoirs have been published by those who witnessed the confrontation, each prefaced by a dedication to the woman who taught us that standing still can move mountains. And what of the general herself? She visits the cemetery in the hush of dawn, kneeling once more beside the urn. Her footsteps fall soft on gravel, her uniform immaculate beneath ancient oaks. She places fresh blooms at the base of the tree under which the photo shattered, and she whispers no words for none are needed. In that reverent silence, the promise of that day lives on that honor once defended never fades. This episode teaches us that silence in the face of wrongdoing enables abuse of power, but a single act of steady defiance can ignite change. The message is clear: systemic bias can only be dismantled when individuals speak up, no matter their rank or status. Now it's over to you. What struck you most about this stand for justice? Have you witnessed or experienced a moment when someone refused to bow to prejudice? Share your thoughts below and let us know how this story resonates in your own life. And looking ahead, when do you believe the era of racially motivated stops and searches will finally end? Drop a prediction. Will it be 10 years, 20, or sooner? Your voices matter. Through collective reflection and sustained dialogue, we can shine a light on injustice and hold institutions accountable. This conversation doesn't end here. It begins anew each time someone dares to ask, when will profiling cease for good? Let's keep this dialogue alive until every person can walk unafraid and every badge truly symbolizes service, not suspicion. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional. All characters and events are creations of the author and are not intended to reference or criticize any real person. It is designed to raise awareness of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating one another with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose all forms of violence, prejudice, and injustice. Please consider this before viewing.